So I wanted to just kick things off with a bit of a welcome and a little bit of context for where this event is coming from. So, how many folks went out to New York last year for the People's Climate March or Flood Wall Street? Yeah. All right, word. So that event was one of the largest mobilizations that we've seen in recent history for climate work, specifically bringing together 400,000 people in the streets of New York, saying that to change everything, we need everyone. However, the next day there was also an event that happened, Flood Wall Street, where people decided to take direct action and decided to say, it's not just that we need everyone everywhere saying that we need to solve climate change. We also need to call out the systems that have created the climate crisis. So they shut down Wall Street, and they were drawing connections between climate chaos and capitalism and the financial industry that has created this. Some organizers with Rising Tide North America, a continental collective of folks, decided to take that call and move it into the next phase of action called Flood the System, which was a call to the climate movement to continue calling out these systems of capitalism and racism and patriarchy and white supremacy that have not only created the climate crisis that we are seeing now, but also have contributed directly to the oppression of folks of color, of LGBT folks, of women, of folks that continue to be directly impacted and have been directly impacted by these systems already. So that work started happening in various cities across the country where people started working together on intersectional organizing and started bringing together groups that were focusing on different issues to come together and say, how can we actually start shifting the narrative and changing the story while we are continuing to fight the bad, continuing to show up in the streets, continuing to win campaigns for our issues that we're working on. In Washington, it looked like Rising Tide Seattle and the Trans Women Action Camp and indigenous-led groups coming together to shut down a detention center and stop detentions, stop deportations happening for a day. It looked like in the San Francisco Financial District, Flood Wall Street West, where folks called out a bank that was directly profiting off of coal and other dirty investments and shutting down the financial district. This has looked like folks from Rising Tide Chicago and other environmental groups coming together with groups that are working to fight gentrification in various neighborhoods around Chicago and stand up for folks that need housing security. And it's looked like folks from Black and Pink who work on prison abolition and supporting LGBT identified prisoners coming to the table and saying, great, how can we work together? How can we start to tell a story about the systems that continue to affect all of us? And this has all been happening in the context of Black Lives Matter, of the Fight for 15, of other moments of energy bubbling up across the country. In Chicago, we're seeing this with nightly mobilizations happening around the shooting of Laquan McDonald and the subsequent video being released and the massive scandal that we're seeing. Also, this is happening because right now in Paris, there are thousands of leaders that are coming together to try and figure out how we can solve climate change while continuing to ensure the comfortability for themselves and for the systems that continue to do this work. Personally, I'm really fucking angry. I'm angry that these systems are continuing to batter us down day by day by day. I'm angry that there's people in Paris that are talking about removing human rights from any sort of agreement to solve climate change. But I'm also hopeful. I'm hopeful because I think that this story that we are starting to tell ourselves, the story about how capitalism and racism and patriarchy and white supremacy are what has caused climate chaos and is causing climate chaos, is our best chance at winning. And I know that this is what scares those in power. Last Friday, was the anniversary of the assassination of Fred Hampton. The reason that he was assassinated was because he was building a coalition with other organizations. He was working with poor white people. He was working with Puerto Ricans. He was working with street gangs that were coming together, and they were building a coalition to take power in Chicago. And I think that the story that we are telling ourselves and the reason that we are coming together and why I'm excited for this is because we are in the legacy of that work. We're in the legacy of folks coming together under the leadership of Grace Lee Boggs in Detroit, and under the leadership of Judy Berry, bringing together Earth First environmentalists and union workers. And we're here to build power, to build a movement, and we're gonna win. And what I want to do as we start marching is I want to very quickly teach folks a song that came out of Flood Wall Street. It's very easy. Some of you might know it. So it goes like this. People gonna rise like the water, gonna calm this crisis down. Hear the voice of my great-granddaughter, singing flood the system now. People gonna rise like the water, gonna calm this crisis down. Hear the voice of my great-granddaughter, singing flood the system now. People gonna rise like the water, gonna calm this crisis down. Hear the voice of my great-granddaughter, singing flood the system now. So whenever you hear that happen, there's gonna be other chants. Listen to the chant leaders, and keep that in your minds as well.
Wells Fargo is super evil.
That's right.
For this event, we are working with people that are climate activists and people fighting prisons and people fighting gentrification and home foreclosure. We came together to look for a common target, and Wells Fargo was a common target, okay? I'm from Rising Tide Chicago. We use education and nonviolent direct action to address the root causes of climate change. We think capitalism is a root cause of climate change, and these assholes in here are profiting while people die. They are profiting from fossil fuels. People have known for more than 20 years that burning, or actually a lot longer than that burning fossil fuels causes climate change. It's destabilizing our climate. The people who are least responsible for climate change are going to suffer the most. Poor folks that live in countries that live really sustainable lifestyles, they haven't done anything to cause this problem, and they may relocate, not have food, etc. Talk about immoral. These folks here are profiting. They're filling their pocketbooks while other people suffer, okay? And so we're here in solidarity with the other groups here fighting prisons and fighting gentrification and home foreclosure to call out this corporate criminal for what they are.
Hey y'all, this is Felix. I'm with Centro Autonomo of Albany Park. And I'm also a resident of the building that was bought by Barnett Capital, who gets money or has gotten money from Wells Fargo. So in addition to Wells Fargo contributing to the housing crisis and doing subprime mortgage lending that was racist, that targeted people of color, even though they had the same qualifications that white people did, and ended up getting fucked over by these practices. Now they're lending to corporations that are buying up buildings and causing the gentrification that we're seeing in our neighborhoods. That's happening all over Chicago. It's really hard to find a place to live if you're not making over $50,000 a year. And we decided to organize and form a tenants union, and we're fighting that. And we're going to try to deliver a letter to ask them to stop lending to Barnett Capital. And yeah, that's it. Fuck big banks. Now we're going to have someone speaking about Wells Fargo's investments in prisons and prison abolition.
I'm here with Black and Pink Chicago. We're an open family of LGBTQ prisoners and free world allies. And yeah, obviously Wells Fargo is a heavy investor in private prisons. Private prisons often treat people far more cruelly because they're making profit. And so yeah, we're just here to fight that injustice. And obviously it also affects people of color and trans people as well disproportionately. So yeah, we're just here to fight that. And I'll talk a little louder. And yeah, we're not just here to, like fight for reforms. We're here to obviously end banks and for prison abolition. So yeah, thanks.
Also want to say that it's really important that we continue doing intersectional organizing, that we all come out and fight our common targets and we show up and we shut shit down, because that's the only way we're going to accomplish something. And if we're anti-capitalist, we got to start organizing and doing shit like this. Alright, let's do some chants.
Wells Fargo has no soul, they put folks out in the cold. Wells Fargo has no soul, they put folks out in the cold. Wells Fargo has no soul, they put folks out in the cold. Wells Fargo has no soul, they put folks out in the cold. Wells Fargo has no soul, they put folks out in the cold. Wells Fargo has no soul, they put folks out in the cold. Wells Fargo has no soul. Cause housing is a human right. Fight, 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 cause housing is a human right. Fight, 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 cause housing is a human right. Fight, 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 cause housing is a human right.
Thing called J-Pay, that prisoners have people that are in prison, they have a card, and they don't have a choice where they bank, right, or where their money goes, and so they have these cards and they put money on there and they charge them really exorbitant fees. These are people that are in prison, and so Chase Bank is one of those banks that's doing that. So that's another reason why we're here and why they're bad, evil. Yeah, boo, right? Another thing is that like they were behind a lot of foreclosures and things like that and kicking people out of their houses when we had a huge economic crisis. And so they're soulless. They don't have a heart. They're not good for us. They're not good for communities. And so that's the reason why we did it. To be honest, like it's kind of like a call to action to have more people shut down sites like this. Look at how many bank branches there are in the Loop, right? If we had 10 times as many people, we could really kind of cause some damage.
Now let's go over to BMO Harris.
Yeah, so this is the point at which we're kind of going to wrap things up. But we have a sign-in sheet that's going on around, and so if you want to get involved, and Dave right over there has the sign-in sheet right there. If you want to get involved with any of the groups that helped organize this, sign the sign-in sheet. All of the groups that helped organize this are small grassroots groups doing like really awesome, amazing work, and we need lots of help. We need lots of people. We need donations. We need all kinds of help, and we're the kind of groups that are doing like the more radical stuff. So we have a lot of fun. Yeah. So sign up.